This is Office Hours with SIU System President Dan Mahony, a monthly podcast that explores what's happening in and around American higher education. And now your host, SIU System President Dan Mahony.
Thank you for tuning into Office Hours. I'm your host, SIU System President Dan Mahony. In today's episode, we're exploring the impact and experiences of international students on our campuses and in our communities. The topic of international students at university campuses has received a lot of attention recently. International students enrich our classrooms, labs, and local economies. However, this fall, there's been a significant decline in international student enrollment across the country. Nationally, universities have experienced nearly a 20% drop in international students, and with much of this decline coming from new international students. Across the SIU system, our decline has been slightly lower, but still about 15%. With this drop in international student enrollment, much has been written about the negative impacts of these declines on universities. First, higher tuition rates paid by international students help sustain scholarships, services, and programs that benefit the entire university campus. So with fewer international students, this has had an effect on university budgets. This has been a case for SIU as well. Second, international students contribute skills and perspectives that fuel research, small business growth, and regional workforce needs. And this workforce need includes higher education. Third, international students bring perspectives, cultures, and experiences that enhance our classrooms and our communities. They provide benefits to many, including our other students. So today I thought it'd be interesting to explore in more detail these second two areas, as well as the experience of international students who come to our campuses. We're going to start by talking with two of our international faculty who originally came here to the United States as students. We're thrilled to welcome to our podcast today Elza Ibroscheva, who serves as Associate Provost for Accreditation, Assessment, and Academic Planning at SIUE, and Jeb Asirvatham, who serves as an Associate Professor of Agribusiness Economics at SIUC. Elza first came to the SIU system as an international student from Bulgaria to our SIUC campus, and now she works at SIUE. And Jeb also came to the United States as an international student from India and now works at SIUC. So let's start by telling us a little bit about your background and experience as international students. And I'll start with you, Elza. What did you do before you came to the United States for your academic work, and why were you interested in coming here?
Thank you, Dr. Mahony, for having me here today. I'm really excited to share my experience as a former international student and now as a faculty member at the SIU system. I began my academic journey as a student of journalism and English in the American University in Bulgaria. I'd like to point out that this was the very first American liberal arts institution in the entire Eastern European region. And as such, I feel very fortunate and very lucky to have experienced the first of its kind educational model in the post-Soviet world. That being said, I have to say that the one thing I realized when I set foot on the campus is that I love everything about American education. And because of that, I realized that also well aligned with my interest in journalism, the United States appeared to be one of the places where I saw myself as a future professional and as someone who was really driven by a desire to understand the meaning of freedom of speech, the meaning of objective journalism, all of this concept that we didn't really realize or were able to practice in Bulgaria. So after working briefly as a journalist in Bulgaria, I decided to pursue graduate studies in the United States to really find answers to these very fundamental questions to my professional interests, but also explore and experience adventure. So that I'm going to risk dating myself, but this was in the days when the internet was really just a way to send emails and wait for a couple of days to receive one back. But at that time, I researched institutions of higher learning with really well-reputed programs, PhD programs in journalism, and SIU Carbondale was one of those places. I was also fortunate to have a professor during my undergraduate studies who highly recommended the PhD program because he also had experience and colleagues who taught at SIUC. And long story short, I packed my bags and got on a plane. I wasn't quite sure where I was heading because at that time I only had an old Soviet atlas of the world, and Carbondale was not marked as an actual entity in the state of Illinois. So with my parents being both amazed and maybe a little worried, they saw me off at the airport, and then I found myself in Carbondale to pursue my master's and later on my PhD.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it must have been interesting going to a place you could not find on the map. That's pretty fascinating. Jeb, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yes, so thank you very much, President Mahony, for having me to share my experiences. I was a student back in India, and I just I continued being student here as well. I studied my bachelor's in agriculture, and then I did my first master's in agricultural economics back in India. My plan was really to join the Agricultural Research Service. That's actually one of the top ag research sort of services for ag students. That was my plan, but early in the second year in my master's, my brother, who studied in Canada, was working in the United States, and he actually persuaded me to actually pursue a degree here. He spoke quite highly about the U.S. education system, how advanced it was, and just the better education system. And I was also a little bit familiar with some of the things here. For example, like the university where I was doing my master's, that actually was established at the beginning with the help of one university here, and I think it was Ohio State. They really helped establish the ag research and all that. So we really thought about quite highly about the U.S. education system. So I came here not just to pursue a higher degree, but to really pursue an advanced degree here.
It's interesting you bring up Ohio State. I actually did my doctorate there and took all of my research classes from the faculty over in agriculture because they were so strong. So that reputation, it's interesting, that went well beyond Columbus, but they were outstanding. Yes. Tell us a little bit about your adjustment to coming to education in the United States. What was particularly challenging, and anything that surprised you when you came to the United States or U.S. higher education?
Yeah, so my undergrad and during my undergrad and master's in India itself, I was away from home. So I wasn't very homesick at the beginning, but of course the length of time away was a bit difficult as it progressed time. But I was pleasantly surprised that almost, all of my classes, they required a lot of research and a lot of writing, which we were not used to. We used to have assignments, but not to the extent that we have here. And how the faculty encourage students to engage in a lot of discussion and even just asking questions. So that was a bit of an adjustment for me. I used to love it, but I was never outspoken in the class. In terms of like the financial assistantship, I had an assistantship though, so there was no financial stress on my side, although I know that it is like a common issue among international students. I did find that friendships take time, but being around others from our own country at the beginning, especially, it helped a lot. And then students over here really love to learn about other cultures, even through like trying different foods and everything. So that really helped the social aspect of among students in the American education system really helped a lot. And it's interesting to see that faculty here socialize with the students. We are never used to that back in India. It was very formal. So that was really helpful to be able to approach the faculty as well. So that's been my experience.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. I actually hosted a visiting scholar from Japan at one point, and he sat in my class, and he talked about some of those things, too, as being very different than what he experienced in his classroom over in Japan. So, Elza, anything you want to add?
I think for me, the most exciting thing that I experienced joining the classroom in the United States was the amount of engaging, flexible, and collaborative learning experiences that we were able to have in the classroom. I always imagined that advanced degrees of study, such as master's and a PhD, usually come with professors who tend to be more guarded of their time, and therefore, in the sort of sense of professing knowledge, also tend to be more formal in those interactions with the students. And I was pleasantly surprised that was not the case in the United States, almost to the extent where I wasn't quite sure, really, can I come to your office at any time? Which is what I experienced with my professors. They were welcoming. They were very friendly. We spent hours talking about ideas and that interests me, and refining further areas of study, hypotheses, data sets, all of these things that I didn't necessarily think are going to happen in this particular format of communication. So I was very, very pleasantly surprised of this level of welcoming and engaging interactions that I had with my faculty members.
Yeah, that's interesting. I often think I have had over the years when I was a doctoral student, one of the things that surprised me was the kind of the first name basis that I was with my faculty members, which is not something you experience as an undergrad. And when I became a doctoral mentor, I kind of wanted to do the same thing. What I found was interesting is some of my international students really struggled to adjust to that because it was such a different concept for them. So,
yes.
Is there anything about the experience of being an international student that you think might surprise people in the United States? And Elza, we'll start with you.
Well, I will speak to my experience as well. As first arriving from Europe in the United States, I surely was very shocked to find out the situation with public transportation. And to this day, every time I talk to international students, this is one thing that they all share. How do you take the bus? If the bus doesn't go in the type of routes that you experienced as a primary means of getting from place to place, that surely comes as one of the biggest cultural shock. And I would add to this one also the lack of walking sidewalks when the bus is not available. So there are a lot of adjustments that you frequently have to do based upon expectations and constructions of your idea of what the United States looks like. That is quite, it's quite interesting to experience once you are on American soil. And I would add my second really surprising experience was the vastness of everything. There is absolutely no way one can prepare if you've never gotten to be in a place so beautiful and so big, both in terms of land, but also physicality of landscapes. And I felt a bit scared at the beginning to sort of think about how do I navigate this on my own, but also embrace the opportunity to be adventurous and to ask and lean into the resources and the community around you, which is another amazing thing one discovers when you arrive from abroad, is how very, very welcoming and warm the people surrounding you really are and are willing to assist you in whatever way they can. And that was another wonderful thing about my experience in Carbondale.
Jeb, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, on the last point that Elsa mentioned, I knew about hospitality homes, but I didn't expect the community to be so involved in providing assistance and all that. Particularly, I see like churches, they actually give rides and all that. I was so surprised that they would even give material, assistance and all that. From the university side, I did not expect so much student service to support both academic and social life. I've never had that support, or at least I've not seen that much support back in India. So that was really surprising. There's so much support available for both academic and social life.
It's interesting. I've known a number of people over the years and been involved with programs when you talk about the welcoming and people helping out, where we've had people in the community almost adopting international students and getting quite close with them. And so it's been interesting how much benefit I think they feel, too, of everybody wins in that kind of situation. And I will say when it comes to the mass transit, that was my shock going to other countries, was how easy it was to get around in ways that here I would have never been able to do without a car, and pleasantly surprised by that.
Yes.
So, Jeb, like many international students who came to the U.S. to study, you stayed and continued to work here and make wonderful contributions in our communities. And I should point out, Jeb was the author of our economic impact study, so he directly benefited us here at SIU. And Elza actually has been involved in a number of things. She led the accreditation process for SIUE. She was part of a national award we won for course sharing across the system. And you can either give her credit or blame her. The whole podcast that I'm doing is her idea. So both of you have made contributions in a lot of ways, some of which I've directly experienced. But Jeb, starting with you, what factors were critical in that decision to stay?
It was really the academic system that really drew me. This was a very simple concept here. You work hard, you get rewarded. There's a lot of good research and advanced research going on here in the United States. But also we look around, like among faculty, I would see like so much collaborative work and just the whole attitudes towards collaboration and just approaching. So that really freed up my mind to be actually here and see that this is really good. And also just the freedom to work at any university, and the mobility was much more here than like what I see in India, where usually people work at one university and then just stay there for life. So the only thing that I feel was like, just to find the right community where we can raise children was also important for our social life, but really it was the academic system that prevailing in the United States that really made us decide that this is the place we would want to work.
As I mentioned earlier, when I first arrived into the US, I imagined myself as coming here for opportunities to grow professionally. But soon enough, after I began to take all of these advanced classes in journalism, I actually found a real deep fascination, and I would even say love, for doing research. I realized as I spent more time engaging in these fruitful conversations with my faculty that there is also a very large scarcity of knowledge in literature about my region and the developments of media and the need to produce the research and produce this kind of knowledge that is going to be helpful for our field, but really also for understanding better emerging democracies and opportunities to think about what these transitions into new systems of media ownership and operations look like. So all of this is to say that unexpectedly, I actually found the idea of becoming a professor and becoming a researcher very appealing. And I couldn't imagine myself being in another place that have the opportunity to support such intellectual endeavors as the United States higher education system. So it felt like a great opportunity that I couldn't pass on. So coming from a journalistic background and turning into a journalism professor was not the route I was hoping for, but I would not change it in the world.
Well, it's interesting you both talk about the opportunities to explore different topics and topics that are particularly interesting to you and do it in a collaborative way. And I think it's one of the things that I maybe take for granted, but that's been part of my experience as well. And I think when you talk about it, one of the things that I was fortunate, again, I talked about hosting a visiting scholar from Japan. He got me involved in examining sports in Japan in a way that I never would have done without him being here, and open up to a whole lot of another line of research, and that was a really rewarding experience for me. And so it's we all benefit again from that type of thing. So last question, I'll start with you, Elza. What advice would you give to current international students coming to the United States to study?
I would say broaden your horizons and embrace the new cultural opportunities. Take the trip, get in a car, drive with your friends, find out about all the remote corners that surround you, and don't worry about the academics. That will be there. You will thrive. You will continue to be successful, but take opportunity to get to know the place you're at, the people that you're surrounded with, and contribute also to their expanding their knowledge. As a Bulgarian, I was really fortunate to be the president of the Bulgarian Student Association in Carbondale, so I think I spread a lot of knowledge about Bulgaria in a small corner that I didn't even know existed, and I have been enriched in ways that are really difficult to describe in a few words by being in a place like Carbondale. So take the trip, embrace opportunities to get to know the people and the places around you.
Yeah, Jeb, anything you want to add?
Yeah, sure. One of the things, I mean, most of us, when we come from outside, we're looking for, how we can be more successful in our career and also stay here. Several of us plan to work here at least for a few years before deciding whether to stay or not. So, but one thing that I see among students is there is a rush to graduate. I always advise even my own students, don't rush to graduate. Get equipped with tools and sharpen your skills in your career. Talk to your advisor. That is so important, whether you want to continue in higher education or take private jobs, because the skills that you need to be successful in a higher education, like a university system, is quite different. The type of research that I suggest my PhD students is very different from those who want to pursue a career in the private industry. Socialize, get connected, just go beyond your country folks. What I say, for example, like, I'm from India. So I would prefer like those who are coming from India, like just go explore other culture, other communities, speak with them, other in America or others. Just, that really enhances our social skills. Just learn about others. Because what I see here, even the private companies, they are not just looking for technical expertise like what we used to think back in India, just, get a degree, specialize, get out. But here they also look at social skills because they're also looking for potential clients that these employees can draw. So that is so important. So yeah, don't rush to graduate. Be equipped, and then and be open with your advisor.
Yeah, here you're both talking about really soaking up the experience beyond just the classes and taking advantage of everything university offers. It reminds me, we had a program at one of my previous universities where we brought a lot of students over from countries, warmer climates, to Kent, Ohio, which was bitterly cold when they came over. But what I loved about them was everywhere I went, they were there, including at hockey games, which I am sure they had not seen a hockey game before in their life, but they would always be there. And I always said to my other students, I was like, you need to do what they do. And I think that's great advice to every student, is take advantage of all that the university offers. Yes. And experience all of it. So again, I want to thank Elza and Jeb for joining me today and sharing a little bit about your experiences as an international student. And thanks so much to both of you, seriously, for everything you do for the SIU system. We really appreciate you both. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
We're also excited to have here with us today on the podcast Cheryl Borowiak, who leads the Office of International Affairs here at SIUE. So Cheryl, first, can you describe the steps in the admissions process for international students, how that may have changed over time, and how does that differ from the experience of domestic students?
Thank you, Dr. Mahony. It's a pleasure to be here today with you all. Sure. So the international student admission process is like a straightforward two-step process. So both undergraduate and graduate students apply online. They pay our application fee, submit all the English proficiency documents, any previous transcripts, and they all must be in English. So graduate students may have additional departmental requirements also, so they must upload those documents as well. And then they receive a communication stating they're approved once they're approved for admission. Once approved for admission, students are asked to apply for this Form I-20. It's a government form that they must have. And included with that, they also have to submit financial documentation, the bank statements showing proof of funding for one full academic year, which includes tuition and fees, health insurance, housing, and less any scholarship funds, assistantships, awards. So the government Form I-20 is then created and issued to the student, and that allows them to apply for their student visa. And then your second question was, over time, the application process has kind of gotten a lot more streamlined. It's allowing students to apply online versus all through paper sending and mailing in paper documentation. So the difference between the domestic and international student application process is basically the need for them to demonstrate their financial ability to fund their education during the time they're here at SIUE. So that's basically an extra step that domestic students don't have to do. They apply and they're admitted and they show up, where it's a lot more detailed for these students to say, yes, I have the funds to provide all the things and expenses that they need to cover during their time here at SIUE. So that extra step is really the most stressful process for students, is demonstrating that financial part of the admission process, allowing them to prove to the consulate that they can afford to be here in the U.S.
Yeah, and as we talked about at the beginning, sometimes they're paying, in many cases, paying more. So that stress of proving that you can pay for that's not insignificant, and it's not an insignificant amount of money. And in some ways very different than what we're doing with domestic students, where they have to fill out the FAFSA so we can see how much money we should be providing them to make sure they can afford it. So it is a different expectation for students coming internationally. So can you tell me a little bit about what efforts do you all make to help students adjust to our country, to higher education or SIUE specifically? And in what ways do you think it's different or similar to what you've seen at other higher education institutions?
Sure. So the Office of International Affairs provides student support for our international students. And we're basically the hub that connects the students to other campus resources and offices. And I like to say our office is kind of the voice for international students and for advocacy throughout the entire campus. We provide immigration support, such as answering questions about passports, visas, employment. So when they come here and they get a job on campus, we actually assist them with the process of getting a social security number. Many offices don't know we do that, but we do. And we also then help them maintain their immigration status during the time that they're here on campus and beyond when they're employed in OPT and STEM. So international students that come in new, we provide pre-arrival webinars, and we also provide a new student orientation. And the orientation sessions include information regarding academic integrity, classroom expectations, campus safety, and then we announce that we have walk-in hours and provide appointments for students who would like to come in at any time that they have any questions or concerns. And so we're really an advocate for our students and help them bridge any gaps that they need to across campus. We host mentorship programs. We provide field trips, as you mentioned, going to a St. Louis hockey game. That's on our radar for November, so we're looking forward to that. We've taken them on field trips to across to the St. Louis Arch. We've done a mentorship program which bridges mentors with mentees, and students absolutely love this program. It gives them it feels more secure for them to have someone that they can go to on a regular basis. So those are the types of things that we've done. We've collaborated with other offices in support of joining together on efforts with orientation and different things across campus. So students really need that in order to feel supported and welcomed in our environment here on campus, and I know they appreciate that.
Yeah, and I will say, I know you have a very good reputation for being able to help students, and even back to the first question, one of the things we saw was before what happened this year, we were really seeing an increase in international students, and I think a lot of it has to do with your office really helping them through that admissions process, so we thank you for all the work that you do there. What practices do you think has done the most to strengthen international enrollment at SIUE?
So due to the high cost of higher education in the U.S., many students need at least some type of financial assistance to be able to prove to the consulate that they're able to come here. So anytime that we're offering things like our Geographic Enhancement Opportunity Award, we call that the GEO Award, that helps keep our costs lower, and students are able to come up with less money than on their bank statements and prove that they're able to afford their financial education here. So scholarships have been extremely instrumental in marketing the institution internationally. And in addition, we use recruitment agents, and they have been key to strengthening enrollment. Agents make sure that students are aware of SIUE, and they help ensure that parents feel comfortable that the institution is a safe environment for their student. So partnerships with other universities also play an important role, and they provide a clear pathway for students, and they ensure collaborated support exists between our academic departments and development center and offices across campus. It's also through word of mouth that we do end up having a lot of students spread the word of their successful experience here, and we love that. We love to see that students know who we are, what we can do for them, and how they can help us in reverse.
Talk a little bit about, and you talked about this a little bit already, of what we certainly do with some extra activities, but how do we design classes and co-curricular activities so our domestic students and international students benefit from the interaction? Both Elza and Jeb talked about that a lot, being critical to their positive experiences. And do you think there's more we can do to maximize those benefits for all students?
So while I know that there are a lot of things that exist that we're probably really not that aware of, there are other things. Recently, we've hoped to possibly open up and build in a study abroad experience to learn about different cultures, and group projects that require cross-cultural perspectives, like assigning diverse teams with a mix of domestic and international students together. We've learned that both domestic and international students want to be together. They want to learn from each other, and they know that that's a big part of them coming here, as Elza and Jeb described earlier. That's making friendships is important to them. So I think that global leadership programs and service projects are another way that we can create initiatives that require collaboration across cultures.
Yeah, no, and I think that kind of talking to each other is really important. I always remember I was teaching a class once where I just happened to have kind of that international domestic student mix within, and I would split them up in groups to talk. And I always kept gravitating towards that group because the most interesting discussions of a student who was coming from Japan with a student who grew up in the Deep South versus a student who grew up in another part. So it's both the domestic kind of diversity within it as well as the international students, and how they talked about the issues we were discussing in class was really fascinating to me. What is one myth about international students that you frequently hear that does not really match reality?
One that I've heard, I would say one of the most, is people say that international students don't want to build friendships and acclimate to our society and, build relationships with domestic students. But that's just totally not true. They have barriers that stop them from doing that. And some of those barriers might be their language or communication skills and the challenges they face with cultural differences and social norms. So we've learned that part of them coming over here is just not only their education, it's for social and connecting with our world and wanting to be a part. And so getting domestic and international students together is so important so they can learn from each other.
Looking ahead, what innovations in advising, career services, or alumni networks could help SIUE or even SIUC convert international enrollment into long-term regional talent?
I would say regional retention of talented students requires proactive career planning and advisement, structure, investment, and buy-in from the community. Some students' suggestions would be job placement and incentive for recent graduates, which I know our Career Development Center does an awesome job of that already. But there are actually companies that really count on our international student talent. Companies such as IDOT right here in Illinois is a big one, and we have several companies that our students find employment in their field of study after they graduate. So converting international enrollment into long-term regional talent, we have to think beyond the classroom, and weaving together immigration, support, employer education, career development, and alumni connections is really important to build into an integrated system.
Now, it's interesting you bring that up. I think one of the groups I hear from frequently is kind of the businesses that rely on our international students and how critical they are for their workforce, and how we try to collaborate to make sure that pathway is as seamless as possible. So, again, I want to thank you for your time today, Cheryl, and thank you again for all you do to support the students here at SIUE.
Thank you so much.
As we wrap up this episode, I want to acknowledge our production team on the Office Hours podcast. SIU Edwardsville graduate student Solomon Amande, who is one of those international students and has been really helpful to us here at the podcast, as well as a great member of the SIUE community. Also want to thank Jason Church at WSIE Radio on the SIUE campus for his guidance. And thank you again for all of you for listening and being a part of our program. So thank you very much.
Be sure to join us next time on Office Hours for further conversation with the people who work in and study higher education. Special thanks to Kara Baldus-Merriman and Daniel Merriman for the use of their composition Writer's Block as the Office Hours theme song. And thank you for listening to Office Hours with SIU System President Dan Mahony.